Greetings, everyone. You've reached S.J. Thomason with Christian-Apologist.com. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about objective morality. I recently debated a person who calls himself Negation of P on the Modern Day Debate channel on YouTube. Negation of P is of the opinion that we can't have universal laws and duties because he says they are changing and therefore they violate God's unchanging nature. Our moral lawgiver, God, is a standard against which we judge whether our practices, beliefs, and actions are morally correct. God is unchanging, and his standards are unchanging. Yet our practices, beliefs, and actions may change over time as we, as societies, develop a better understanding of our calling on earth. Let's hear a little bit about what Negation of P says. He went on last night to the Skylar Fiction channel, and he gave some of his feedback on the debate that I had with him. So here's just a little snippet.
Jesus.
That's what's funny is she doesn't realize she just walked forehead first into a buzzsaw, because everything she said there is going to come back and bite her in the ass so bad here in about 15 seconds.
Like, how can you even argue? Yeah, she doesn't. You know what I'm thinking about here? Honestly, what I was thinking at this point, I was like, maybe we need to get SJ to define what makes something moral or immoral, right? Because like she it seems like she would have a hard time doing that. And then if she then like it solidifies the argument you're making, right? Like, even if she's like, well, it's God's nature, and you're like, oh, God's nature is unchanging, right? Yeah, okay. It's like, then how could this ever be?
I think
C.S. Lewis said, "You find out more about God from the moral law than from the universe in general, just as you find out more about a man by listening to his conversation than by looking at a house he has built." Now, from this second bit of evidence, we conclude that the being behind the universe is intensely interested in right conduct, in fair play, unselfishness, courage, good faith, honesty, and truthfulness. In that sense, we should agree with the account given by Christianity and some other religions that God is good. But do not let us go too fast here. The moral law does not give us any grounds for thinking that God is good in the sense of being indulgent, or soft, or sympathetic. There is nothing indulgent about the moral law. It is as hard as nails. It tells you to do the straight thing, and it does not seem to care about how painful or dangerous or difficult it is to do. End quote. We can thank God that we have universal and objective moral values and duties. Since Skylar asked the question of whether I should define that, I will go ahead and do that here. Moral values refer to whether something is good or bad, while moral duties refer to whether something is right or wrong. According to Rokeach, to say a person has a value is to say he has an enduring belief that a specific mode of action, conduct, or end-state existence is personally and socially preferable to alternative modes of conduct or end states of existence. To say moral values or duties are objective is to say they do not vary as a function of a person's opinion. To say moral values or duties are universal is to say they are shared by all people globally, regardless of race, culture, sex, religion, color, or other demographic characteristics. They are the standards against which we judge practices, behaviors, and actions. For example, truth is an objective moral value whose meaning does not vary as a function of any one person or group of people. We assess whether someone is lying by matching his words or behaviors up against what we know as the truth. The golden rule is an objective moral duty whose meaning does not vary as a function of any person or group of people. We assess whether people follow the golden rule by whether and how their words or behaviors match up to a standard of benevolence. Some have argued that because objective moral values and duties transcend the cognitive limitations of particular individuals and are not restricted to the ethos of various cultures and eras, they must have been derived from a source that transcends the same boundaries. They argue that this source is an objective, universal, and intentional moral lawgiver. Craig is one example. Craig makes the argument that if objective moral values and duties exist, God exists. This is William Lane Craig, and he states, "There must be an infinite, eternal mind who is the architect of nature and whose moral purpose man and the universe are gradually fulfilling." In multiple studies of hundreds of samples in 82 countries and representing culturally diverse people, Of varying ages, genders, occupations, and geographies, Schwartz drew a conclusion that he considered astonishing. After ranking 10 values in order of importance, results indicated universals in values. Respondents across all cultures ranked benevolence as the most important value, followed by universalism and self-direction. Schwartz defined the constructs as follows. Benevolence refers to preserving and enhancing the welfare of those with whom one is in frequent personal contact, the in-group contact. Universalism, now let's not confuse this with moral universalism, refers to understanding, appreciation, tolerance, and protection for the welfare of all people and for nature. So that's focusing on the out-group. Self-direction refers to independent thought and action, choosing, creating, and exploring. Schwartz defined values as guiding principles in people's lives. They are standards or goals that guide actions, and they transcend specific situations or actions and are ordered by importance. Schwartz posited that having the pan-cultural values he discovered may be attributable to adaptations by humans to maintain order in societies over time. Along similar lines, Kinnear, Kearns, and Doutharibes in 2000 consulted the religious texts and sacred writings of 7 major world religions to identify whether any universals were present. They further consulted atheist and humanist organizations, along with the United Nations. They found these commonalities. 1, a commitment to something greater than oneself. 2, self-respect, but with humility, self-discipline, and acceptance of personal responsibility. 3, respect and caring for others, or the Golden Rule. And 4, caring for other living things in the environment. In a similar study, Dalsgaard and colleagues in 2005 examined the ancient texts from 8 religious traditions. These include Christianity, Judaism, Athenian philosophy, Taoism, Confucianism, Islam, Hinduism, and they found 6 recurrent values: courage, temperance, justice, transcendence, humanity, and wisdom. Where did these universal and objective values and duties originate? Others have also found similarly. I'll just mention 2 quick ones. Westmark identified universals in the approval of honesty, charity, mutual aid, generosity, while Heinrich and colleagues in 2005 examined 15 societies, finding that fairness and trust were exhibited in all. Illes, Arvey, and Bouchard noted that traits, work attitudes, values and interests, and behaviors are heritable. More specifically, the authors reported that the heritability of intelligence is between 0.6 and 0.8. The heritability of the 5-factor model of personality is 0.41 for emotional stability, 0.49 for extroversion, 0.45 for openness to experience, 0.35 for agreeableness, and 0.38 for conscientiousness. Empathy is a facet of agreeableness. The heritability of positive and negative emotionality is between 0.43 and 0.47. The heritability of a person's attitude towards being a leader in a group is 0.41. These are from additional studies by Bouchard and McHugh in 2003 and Olson and colleagues in 2001. For all these traits, the genetic component is less than half. Non-genetic components, such as the environment in which a person is raised, are in each case more important in determining how people behave. These findings offer strong evidence against an evolutionary hypothesis for morality, according to Professor Cy Gart, who is a biologist. As noted above, why biologists and psychologists have described descriptively our as-is genetic predispositions and environmental influences on certain behaviors, they cannot explain our should-be moral oughts and duties. It is a category error for them to define our moral prescriptions using a tool that is descriptive. So I would like to come to the conclusion, after offering these pieces of evidence, towards the fact that we have universals in values and duties, that a universal moral lawgiver is present. And let me just say it this way. 1, if humanity has universal objective moral values and obligations to do what's right, there must be a universal source of righteousness that transcends generations. 2, humanity has universal objective moral values and obligations to do what's right. 3, there is a universal source of righteousness, God. These findings support the assertion that we have a conscience and a moral compass, which direct us to goodness. It follows that the source of our conscience is a benevolent, transcendent moral lawgiver. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul stated the following in Romans. He said, "They show that the work of the law is written on their hearts, while their conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse them, or even excuse them." Philosophers, evolutionary biologists, and psychologists have offered other explanations of our objective moral values and duties, which are captured in either evolutionary adaptations, social development, genetic influences, our environment, or objective moral theories. Rather than thinking these explanations are at odds with one another, falling into the modern debate trap that pits science against religion, one might posit a process-based view, using Christian synderesis, reasoning, and conscience. Evolutionary adaptations may have been guided by a divine moral lawgiver who stacked the deck in favor of selflessness and humility over selfishness, ego and coopetition, which is the combination of competition and cooperation. The heritability of social traits in the environment offers an explanation of the as-is predispositions in humans that make more or less probable various behaviors. Yet they do not offer an explanation of our moral duties or the prescriptions under which we have been universally guided. They are subject to change. They are inputs into human knowledge, which has been guided transcendentally towards our objective, intuitive, and universal moral values and duties to do what's right in the eyes of our Maker. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and come again. You can find more information at Christian-apologist.com. I've written a number of articles on our objective morality, and I'm currently in the process of writing a book that's going to include a chapter on the same thing. Thank you.